Welcome to the Motherhood Alliance podcast, the podcast dedicated to empowering moms and families on their health and wellness journey. I'm Brittany Suttner.
And I'm Andrea Rinkus. Together, we're here to explore holistic approaches that go beyond conventional medicine.
Each week, we dive into topics that matter most to you. Everything from nutrition and mental health to alternative therapies and natural living.
And whether you're a new mom navigating the early stages of parenthood or a seasoned pro looking for new ways to support your family's well-being, you're in the right place.
Even better, all of our guests are local small business owners who you can actually talk to and work with. You can learn more about today's guest and connect with hundreds of other health and wellness professionals through our informative and easy-to-use directory at motherhoodalliance.com.
Before we get started, keep in mind that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for personal healthcare advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes based on the podcast content.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Are you ready to help your family thrive? Let's get started. Hi, we are Britt and Drea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to welcome you to a 3-episode series with Bridget Dean, the owner of Beyond ABC and the only certified Play Wisely infant and child specialist in the state of Wisconsin. Located in Pere, Wisconsin, Beyond ABC focuses on child developmental wellness classes for little ones ages birth to 5 years old and offers a safe and welcoming environment for both the parents and children to connect, learn, play, and thrive. Bridget has a passion for learning and playing with kiddos, overall childhood development, and helping parents, caregivers, and especially mamas navigate these early years of childhood. In her free time, Bridget loves to spend her time reading, skiing, golfing, and exploring new playgrounds with her 2 kiddos. Bridget radiates smiles, positive energy, and sunshine, and we know you're going to love her. So let's get started with today's conversation. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Motherhood Alliance podcast. We are on episode 3 with Bridget from Beyond ABC. Welcome back, Bridget.
Thanks so much for having me.
And we actually have another special guest because you have partnered with Jessica Liederbach from Carousel Music Therapy to bring an awesome class into your space. So welcome, Jessica.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about music therapy and what that is in this episode. Is that just, listening to music? Is there intention behind it? Is it a bigger field than maybe many of us even know? But I'd love to just start out by learning about how you two connected in the first place.
Yeah, so I had been running my business for almost a year. And I knew before I even started that I wanted to add a musical element to my classes and specifically from a developmental perspective. So the music therapy class. Music classes are great, but more from like a developmental perspective. So I was in business for about a year and I had started putting feelers out there. I'm a little bit of a believer in manifesting, right? You put it out into the world, you get that back. So I had started kind of manifesting this, and randomly one day I get an email from Jessica out of nowhere, and I open it up and she introduces herself and she says, I'm a music therapist, and I've worked in NICU settings and pediatric settings. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I just jumped right on it. And then we started our conversation from there. And then it evolved into kind of what we wanted it to be. And I always like to come up with a cute name. So we came up with Tiny Toons Music Therapy and wanted to make sure that we had music therapy in the title so that parents knew that it was from a therapeutic lens versus just a regular music class. Because I have little musical elements in my Play Wisely class, but I am not a music therapist nor very musical in general. So I knew I needed to outsource this one. So it was really kismet that Jessica reached out to me.
Yeah. So let's start with that. What is music therapy and how is it different from just like a music class?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so I'm going to refer back to the American Music Therapy Association's definition, which really has like 5 comprehensive points about what music therapy is. And that kind of helps you to understand what it isn't, right? When you define what is, you learn what it isn't. So the first thing is that it's clinical and evidence-based, which means that there's a whole body of literature around music therapy and how music affects the brain. And we often are in clinical spaces, right? So we're working with other clinical allied professionals. So that's kind of point 1. Point 2 is that it's individualized. So when you're working with even a small group like we do at Beyond ABC, you're working on individualized goals. So I'm assessing in the moment, okay, this child is at this point in their gross motor development. And so we're targeting that specific child's gross motor goals. Whereas if the child next to them might be at a different juncture in their speech development. And so we're targeting their speech goals. And so it's very specifically catered. It's individualized with goals and objectives. The third third point is that music essentially is the mode of treatment, but often the goals are non-musical, right? So I just mentioned gross motor, and I just mentioned fine motor and speech, but we're using music to get there. And we can talk about that a little later, essentially how the brain is motivated by music and organized by music. The fourth point is that it's within a therapeutic relationship. So you hear the word therapy, and I think people think, well, music is so therapeutic, I'm doing music therapy. And that is probably a little bit true, but more true is that therapy happens in a relationship. So there is a therapist actually who has training and is credentialed to actually go through the verbal processing pieces of music therapy as well. And the last thing is that it is board certified and credentialed, right? So I have educational experiences, both bachelor's and master's level, and then music therapists very much are into specialties. So you can go into a NICU specialty, neurologic music therapy specialty. Those are the two that I have. Hospice specific specialties. And so you get official credentially, you're getting credentialed and you're getting your education as well.
Okay. Now, when I hear the word therapy, and I think a lot of people hear the word therapy, they think something is wrong. Physical therapy is you have you had an injury and now you need your shoulder rehabbed. There's occupational therapy, there's speech therapy. I'm worried that my kiddo is not staying up to where they should be developmentally for their speech. So to be honest, I feel like when I hear therapy, I think of, who is this for?
Sure.
Is this for me?
Sure.
And then, so how to kind of define that or debunk that a little bit for me. And then Bridget, I'd love to hear how this went with you bringing this into your classroom. How are you able to market this to show that this is for anyone? So go ahead first, Jessica.
Yeah, so that's a really great point. Music therapy can be for anybody, right? Because everybody has things that they're working on. We're not all perfect people, right? So we've talked a little bit about, potentially someday doing music therapy for postpartum mothers, right? And talking a little bit more about verbal processing with moms after their birth experiences. And you can use music as the driver of that. That doesn't necessarily mean that something is wrong, but it just means that they need some potentially additional levels of support. Now, in Bridget's setting, where we're doing this amazing group therapy work, it is not necessarily that there is something wrong, but it is that their kids I'm looking specifically as a clinician versus just leading a music class, which can be very play-based, and they can absolutely be working on speech goals or physical goals or social goals with peers. But I'm looking at it as a clinician. So I'm looking at where there might be, and I don't like to use the word deficit, but where there might be some room for improvement, and then we're targeting that specifically. It's just a bit more intentional.
Can you give us a little bit of an example of what that would look like? So if you saw a kiddo, you're doing the music therapy class and you would kind of identify something like that, what would that actually look like?
Yeah, so a little bit different in our group setting than an assessment. So in a normal setting, right, I would be taking an assessment of the client individually, and then I would be talking to the parents, obviously, if they're under 18, a little bit about the goals that we would be identifying and the objectives, how we're going to be working and targeting that. In a group setting, it is a little bit more free form. I do talk to the moms. They do say, I'll say, how are they talking today, or where are they at with their speech? And they may tell me in the middle of class or after class. But then I'm specifically utilizing, let's just use the example of rhythmic cueing. I'm going to use rhythmic cueing in a drum setting where we're going to be using the motivator of rhythm to allow the brain to create those neural pathways to produce sound. And so it's something very simple. It sounds very simple, but it's a bit more complex. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So getting back to you, Bridget, how are you able to bring this into your plethora of classes that you already offer?
Yeah. And from a parent perspective, how we're promoting it is that it's just another fun play-based learning opportunity for your child, but you can feel good as a parent or caretaker knowing that there's a bunch of science behind it and that your child's development is top of mind when we structure this class. So even if you don't understand what's going on as a parent, you can feel good knowing that it's coming from an expert and that it's still just a fun class for you to come to.
Yes.
And I know you're such a huge support within this class for Jessica. She's running it, and you get to be the observer, and you get to kind of, I think a lot of times when we're the teacher, we are engrossed in what we're actually looking for and looking at, and you get to observe the beauty of it. So why don't you give us a little bit of an overview of what a class is actually like from a observer's perspective?
Oh my gosh, it's just the most gorgeous thing. It's so cute to see the parents. We've had parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles come in, and just to see them have that purposeful moment of play with each other, and that to see them bonding together, they're both shaking the rattle at the same time together, or they're lifting each other up. If it's babies, the parent is lifting the baby up and the baby's smiling at them. And just to see those moments of bonding, and it's that purposeful moment of bonding, right? Our days get so busy, and what we were talking about in our previous episode of sometimes you don't know what to do with your child, right? This is a purposeful moment for them to play together. And so from an observer perspective, it's just so fun to see these little moments of even just like a baby sitting on the mom's lap. And just like you can tell that child feels so comfortable with their mom or their dad or their caretaker. And just to see that bonding happening is so fun. And then the music that Jessica plays and the sing-alongs and stuff, it's very catchy tunes and there's purpose behind each one. But there's songs that some of the parents knew, so they'll sing along with her, and songs that they learn and can take home with them. So yeah, as an observer, it's so fun. And I wish my kiddos were there all the time.
And I see that I like am envisioning this in my head because I've never attended one, but I'm like, I feel like this is a class where somebody, a parent especially, is walking in, they've been rushing, they've been trying to get out the door, they might be feeling a little frustrated, they're coming in with a little bit of just holding on some tension, and by the time you're leaving, you just feel so free and joy-filled because music is medicine, right? It is therapeutic in and of itself, but then also to have your child there as well, like that, it can just be such a beautiful moment.
Yeah, and one of the things why we purposely did do a 4-week session, so it's 4 weeks in a row, so of 30 minutes, one 30-minute class, 4 weeks in a row, is to build that rapport with the parents, and to from a teacher perspective to build that rapport with the parents, but then for also the parents to have that connection with the same people week after week. And we had a really beautiful thing happen in our toddler class. One of the moms messaged me on the side and was like, hey, do you think it would be appropriate if I reach out to the other parents in the class and set up a play date for after class? And so we went about and did that. And I think almost all the parents, wanted to come. It was 6 total families, and they did coffee and a play date at this family's house after class. They didn't know each other before they started this music therapy session, and then they became friends and had a play date. So like that's the whole goal. I mean, obviously we want the developmental perspective, the therapeutic lens, and that's so beneficial for the child and for the parent. But then there's also this community connection part, that falls under Beyond ABC, which was my whole goal with Beyond ABC.
That's a huge passion of yours. Yeah. We talked all about that in episode 1.
Building community and building village, I think, is just so important. And you touched upon that beautifully. Like, we really get to do that in these music classes. I think maybe some of that is also that parents have to be a little bit more vulnerable when doing music with their kids. If your kid is a little bit nervous to do something, you see so many moms and dads go out on their own little limb and be like, okay, I'm going to sing and I'm going to dance and I'm going to do it. And it's like they're pepping themselves up while they're pepping their kids up. And then there's that vulnerability piece where they connect with each other. It's really beautiful. You really do see a lot of that like beautiful connection amongst adults and kids.
I would totally agree with that. I think in today's society, like the kids in your class, the ages that they're at, they're not self-conscious yet. Whereas the parents that are coming in, we've already been living in society where we can't help but feel that comparison and judgment. But you're coming into a space where maybe they have to get out of their comfort zone and move their bodies in front of other adults, especially the first session when they may not know them, but like how beautiful this can be in helping adults step out of their comfort zone too, because that's how we all grow. But going back to the actual music therapy piece, I think it's just so fun at such a young age. If you put music on, babies just like start to bounce. They just can't help it. Can you dive a little bit deeper into the science of what music is actually doing within us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so you started it beautifully. We listen, babies are tuned in to what they hear from, I think it's 26 weeks in gestation. So they are listening to mom's voice. They know their mom's voice, but I think it's like 26 weeks. It's very, very early. They're hearing the whoosh of the womb. They're hearing mom's heartbeat. These are all things that they are familiarizing them. That's their sound environment. So we as humans are just primed to come out and take all of that in. And so like one of the most beneficial things you can do as a parent, even if you say to yourself, my voice is not very good, but to your baby, it is amazing. It's the only voice. It's the whole entire world and universe. And so I think that that's just, something that we need to start off with. But then going further into that, music is very organizing. Think about when you go to a workout class, you're not working out side by side moms in silence, right? You're working out to music. Why? Well, not just because it's fun, though it is very fun, but you're working out because the beat is organizing your body into synchronized movement. And so that's very motivating for your brain. We all just synchronize to the beat innately, right? That's something that innately exists. So again, we come back to, we have parents come into class and they're like, I'm not very musical myself. And it's like, but we are all innately musical. Everyone is, even if you don't think you are, you are. And so organizing, right? That's a big piece of it as well. And then I think the other thing is that, music helps motivate speech. We look at different populations, right? We're going to jump forward and say someone that might have a traumatic brain injury and lose the part of their brain that allows them to speak, or people who have Parkinson's diagnosis and they're losing speech. Music is, the research shows that it is able to connect all new neural pathways across all of your brain. And so it's lighting your entire brain up, therefore creating more efficient and connections that didn't exist prior pathways.
And that makes me think of I think it was episode 1 when you talked about how many neural pathways are being built every second. How many was it, Bridget?
Yeah. Over 1 million every second in
That's just
newborns.
Insane for the babies.
Well, and music is so cool and so powerful. So we do this Tiny Dancers baby wearing dance class, which again is moms with babies 0 to 12 months old. So they're coming in, they're like raw and vulnerable. They just had a baby not that long ago and they're learning who they are. And the beginning of class, everyone's kind of like, hey, how are you kind of thing. And then we put the music on and then we're moving their body with it. Just like in our Tiny Toons music therapy class, we're moving the kid's body a lot too. The combination of music and movement, oh my gosh, it's so connecting with yourself, within your own body and with others. And so by the end of class, with the music therapy, with the baby wearing dance class, the parents are way more apt to be open and vulnerable and have conversations with each other because they've just had this fun experience in their brain. Their nervous system has been reset. So yeah, music is so powerful. And that's a huge reason why I wanted to get a more specific music-based class into my developmental programs within Beyond ABC, and why Jessica is just so amazing at what she does.
Oh,
so in the classes themselves, it's typically a 4-week series. I know in the summertime you do more of pop-up type classes, but typically 4-week series. Do you give the parents any tips for how to bring the same things that they're learning in music therapy to their homes? Once the session ends, how can they continue these benefits in their own homes?
Yeah, so I think in these classes specifically, one of the most important things I'm trying to build is a positive association with music. And I want to really hone in on that as well, because we do have, and I do see this often, that you do have parents who understand the importance of music, let's say because they've started taking lessons at 3 or violin lessons. So they're like, this was a big part of my life. Piano was a huge part of my life. And they do understand how important it is. But then what sometimes can happen is that music can become something that's almost like a chore. It's so important that you have to do it. We don't want that. We want music to always be something that is joyous and fun. And you touched upon this just a few minutes ago, but from a very nerdy and anthropologically speaking, we have evolved to chant and be together in community in music. It's just who we are. So again, what parents can do at home, bringing it back to your question, is keep it fun. Buy those instruments that a mom just said this to me at one of our most recent pop-ups. She's like, my son loved that lollipop drum so much that we had to buy one when we got home, and he carries it around. It's the first thing he picks up from daycare, she said, when he comes home. Keeping it fun is essential, but also, it's patient preferred. I always say that in clinical settings, but if your kid really likes Coco Melon, gasp. Listen to Coco Melon. If that's what's getting them going, then that's what's getting them going. It can be really, I have parents say, oh, my kid really loves AC/DC. And I'm like, rock on, that's fine. But keeping music alive in your home is perhaps the best thing that you can do, and being joyous with them, right? Because just listening is receptive, but the music classes are active. And we talk about active music therapy making, being active with your kids and doing music, dancing with them, taking those dance breaks. All of that is just a great way to cultivate music being a joy in your home.
I love that.
We talked about in the last episode about ways to engage your child in play, a dance party. That's a low lift. You don't even have to dance if you don't want to, but your kids can, right? Yeah. Put on some music. It is a reset button for your whole family,
Add
right?
some glow sticks to it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's...
That's a party.
Yep, we've done that multiple times. And I want to take everything that you just said, Jessica, and take it one step deeper too, because I think a lot of parents that are in these early seasons of motherhood, they're dealing with a lot of tantrums and big feelings that, kids are learning how to work through, and then they're holding those feelings themselves. And parents don't tend to get over grudges as quickly as kids do, where they're just like, oh, I'm still high blood pressure from whatever happened at the store or whatever. How can we use music to bring a calm and like joyful culture in our home in those moments of chaos? Is there a certain like type of genre that you like, or maybe, I don't know, a certain playlist, or I don't know, how would you navigate being able to have a quick go-to for parents that are dealing with a chaotic moment?
That's a great question. And I'll start with kind of the end piece, because I get this question a lot, like what music is most beneficial for my child, right? And there was a movement, I guess it was about a decade ago, where everyone was saying, well, like Mozart or classical music, because there was a few minimal brief studies on how classical music affects your brain. That being said, so yes, if your child positively responds to classical music, then use classical music. But some music can be contraindicated for certain populations and certain kids. So if I put on classical music and my kids are not showing any signs of regulating, perhaps a different genre. So there is no one genre that is like the quick fix. I have certain kids that I work with who some music, like melodic music in general, is too overstimulating. When you think about babies in the NICU, you have to be very, very careful about the layers of music that you're adding. I cannot go to a NICU isolette and start singing and playing guitar and strumming. That's way too much neurologically for a baby to process. You will immediately see signs of overstimulation. So I'm saying all that to say it really is specific to your child, and that's good, right? That involves us having to look at our kid more deeply and bond with our child more deeply and understand, what do you like and what don't you like? Dad really likes this music. Mom really likes this music, but what do you like? That uniqueness is so special for 2-year-olds. and
I think in general, it's like, that's why lullabies are so popular with babies, because it's that calm voice, right? You're usually singing a little bit slower, maybe a lower voice, in a more calming way, which is good for their nervous system. And then as your child develops, you can ramp up more into the gasp, Cocomelon, or AC/DC, rock out, whatever your child's interested in.
But I think this is where attending a Tiny Toons class would be so helpful as well, because if you're in your home, then you can be like, do you remember what we did at Tiny Toons? Do you want to try that now to like help us change how we're feeling and, work through some emotions? Like you could almost reference that experience and bring that into your homes.
Well, and I think what's cool is like, this last session was focused on rhythm. So we did a lot with drums. It's like, you don't necessarily need that lollipop drum at home. Sure, it's so much fun, but you have a table, you have a end table, you have pots and pans. You can make drums out of anything, make music out of anything.
I would also just add to that you mentioned this, but like lullabies, there's like a very specific reason that lullabies are so regulating, right? They're in 3/4 time, which any musicians listening would be like, of course, that's like a waltz tempo, right? But they're also sung often, actually, lullabies are sung at a higher pitch, which is more appropriate and typical for babies. But we also end every one of our classes with a song that is meant to create more regulation. So the way that we kind of create our classes is that by almost 3/4 of the way through, we are at maximum capacity of gross motor movement. We're doing something that's extremely stimulating, which is intentional, right? We're building our stimulation. We're at the peak of our stimulation, and now we have to bring everybody down. It's intentionally built that way. We're going to get all of our sillies out, all of our wiggles out. We're doing the parachute or something that's really, really exciting. And then we're going to bring everybody back down. And so we choose songs often that parents do know, because it's something that parents are willingly going to jump in on. They're going to engage more in, and they're going to help be that calm that you just talked about in the storm, metaphorically, for their child. Because in their brains, they are kind of working through a storm. All of that stimulation can create some of those overstimulation things that we see as well too. So that's very intentional and a good callback for parents.
I love this so much. These classes sound so amazing. I'm just going to come and be a fly on the wall. Please,
we would love that.
Oh, that's so great. Bridget, I want to get back to you here as we finish out our third and final episode together. I would love to just hear what does the future hold for Beyond ABC? I mean, you offer your Play Wisely classes, you offer tiny dancers, your open gyms, your Tiny Toons, the play dates. Like, you're doing so many good things in the community. So many. So what does the future hold?
Thank you. Yeah, we're trying. I'm a brand new business owner. I'm 2 years into this. I didn't plan on being an entrepreneur. So I'm kind of taking it day by day. And these classes have kind of naturally evolved. And as of right now, I love all of our offerings that we have. And it's kind of a broad breadth of what I offer. And so going to continue on with that. And open to suggestions, and we'll see where it takes us.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we'll be sure to link to the next Tiny Toons music therapy events or series coming up in the show notes, as well as your website. Can you just give a refresh on what your website is for listeners?
Yep. So you can learn all about our classes and about Beyond ABC at www.beyondabc.co. You can find us on Instagram at beyondabc.co, and you can find us on Facebook at Beyond ABC.
Awesome. Thank you to both of you ladies for joining us for this episode, giving us so much insight into what music therapy is. We'll link to some information about you as well in the show notes, Jessica. And thank you, Bridget, for joining us for all 3 of these episodes in the series.
Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time, and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.